Feeling good, feeling clean, feeling manscaped. Got that lawnmower 3.0 as a part of the perfect package 3.0 kit, and you can get it too, and you can get it for 20% off plus free shipping at manscaped.com. You just got to use the promo code DNVR20 and you're going to get hooked up with all kinds of great stuff. Of course, you know about the lawnmower 3.0, which is going to get you nice and cleaned up without any nicks. Got a nice LED light to make sure that you get cleaned up everywhere, you don't miss any spots, and it takes care of your sensitive zone. You also get the crop preserver, some anti-chafing deodorant. You get the crop reviver, a little bit of spray-on toner, and you get some spritzer for the shower. Plus, the most comfortable pair of boxers you have ever worn in your life. That's what makes it the perfect package for your perfect package. So get 20% off plus free shipping with code DNVR20 at manscaped.com today. Hey, welcome into the DNVR Rockies podcast presented by Strava Craft Coffee. Remember to use that promo code DNVR20 and you will save 20% off your entire purchase of that CBD-infused, deliciously rich, potentially life-altering Strava Craft Coffee. I am your host, Drew Creasman. I am the managing editor of DNVR Rockies. With me is DNVR Rockies beat writer Patrick Lyons. And on today's episode, we're going to be very excited, assuming he hasn't fallen asleep and forgotten or fallen. I know he's been ill lately, but we're 90% sure that we will be welcoming in our guy from Jomboy Productions, Talkin' Jake. It'll be good to hear and see him again, talk to him on draft day. We're going to try to dive into that a little bit deeper. Before we do that, we've got a few more thoughts on kind of the post-draft aftermath and how the Rockies prospects line up. But even before that, we got baseball action for you. Everyone's frustrated about Major League Baseball right now, and we understand why. We've dived into it a bunch of times, and we will dive into it again in the future. But Patrick, there is live baseball, and not only is there live baseball, there's live baseball out there that you can get a little bit of skin in the game, maybe earn a little bit of money. What do you got for the folks?
Yeah, right now, if you go on DraftKings Sportsbook, besides getting a sweet little discount, there's some KBO game action tomorrow morning or tonight, depending on your sleep schedule. There's some big games going on right now in the KBO, and sports coming back. English Premier League, we're going to be seeing on DNVR Bets. They've got all of that covered and more. But KBO is still real hot right now, and there's a couple real good odds that I do like for the Wednesday morning games. NC Dinos, my NC Dinos are still looking good. Mike Wright is on the hill. So I really like their odds of pulling through for you guys at minus 137. They're still in first place right now. And they look, you can't look unbeatable in baseball, but you certainly can look incredibly hard to beat, and that's where the Dinos are at. Not to mention the LG Twins, who should be getting Roberto Ramos back, Colorado's favorite son right now in the 2020 season, the best player in the world right now.
True, fair enough.
Not many players are playing in the world right now, but Roberto Ramos is one of those guys. He'll be coming back soon. Don't think he'll be active in time for Wednesday's game at 3:30 Mountain Time, but for that reason, I do like the under. The pitchers have been a little questionable, but right now 10.5 is the going number. I like the under on that, and I still do think you got to go at the LG Twins at minus 148. I believe we got Chad Bell on the hill, for the LG Twins. Excuse me, it's Ling Cheng Wu, and against Chad Bell, who has not looked good this season for the Hanwha Eagles. 8.80 ERA. He's 0-2. And if you've been following the standings, the Eagles are in last place, 9-28, a 243 winning percentage. So they are looking like they're going to get the best pick in the 2021 KBO draft.
As it turned out, right? All right, Patrick, I gotta nail you down here, though. We need our DraftKings Sportsbook pick of the week. You can only take one of those for your pick of the week. What do you feel most confident in?
The pick of the week has to be NC Dinos.
It's got to be
going
the Dinos.
Over minus 137. Kia Tigers. Matt Williams has done an interesting job learning the Korean style of game. Obviously, I think he's about only the third American manager or even third foreign-born manager in the KBO. So he's done a much better job. They're sitting at 20-17 after a rough go of it. But I really just like, who's on the hill. I like the matchup with Mike Wright against Lee Min Woo. So I'm going Dinos all the way. Not because I'm a homer, but because I like the numbers. There's enough evidence to support going all in on the Dinos on the Wednesday.
I mean, they've been the class of the league, homer as you may be. Yeah. They've been the class of the league. The facts speak for themselves. And if you're wondering how you get in on all this action, well, you got to download the DraftKings Sportsbook app. You use the promo code DNVR. I'll tell you about that in a minute. But you got to know about DraftKings Sportsbook, man. It really is an awesome app that you can use. You can use it anywhere, everywhere. You can bet on all kinds of sports, as Patrick's talking about, whether you're into soccer, international baseball, golf is a big thing going on right now. You can do day by day, even hole by hole live betting. It's safe, it's secure, it's reliable. It's not any of that offshore nonsense. You withdraw your funds at your own convenience and deposit at your own convenience. And there are all kinds of special odds and promotions going on constantly, sometimes even DNVR specific related bets that you can lay down, which is really, really cool. So download the top rated DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use the code DNVR when you sign up, and check this out. For a limited time, all new users get a sign up bonus of up to $1,000. Wow. A G, 1K, the smackaroon, an entire smackaroon, I believe is the technical term. That's right. All out with this sign up bonus. $1,000. All you have to do is enter code DNVR when you sign up, only at DraftKings Sportsbook. You must be 21 or older, Colorado only. The bonus is comprised of a first deposit bonus and a first bet match, each up to $500. The deposit bonus requires 25 by playthrough. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. And if you have a gambling problem, please call 1-800-522-4700. All right, Patrick, as I was mentioning earlier, I want to jump in a little bit here before we can welcome our guy, Jake, who I'm in some contact with. So I think we're likely to see him here pretty soon. About where the Colorado Rockies updated prospect rankings are. We got into this a little bit on draft night, but, I think we only began to have the conversation. So let's just quickly here sort of give people our listen there. You see, that's, what we were talking about on draft night. This was before how this is Baseball America's ranking straight up, right? We didn't do anything to these. And so I was thinking we could provide the folks with kind of our own take on what the Rockies top 10 is. And going off now mine's not that different from the Baseball America one. Of course, one thing we've got to take into account here is that a draft has occurred in the meantime. And there's a big question about where to slot people in. But I'll give you my top 1, 2, 3, 4, because they do vary from Baseball America's a little bit.
So you've got 4. So the Rockies have selected 6 players in the draft. They also have taken a player as an undrafted free agent, Luke Leisenrig, out of the University of South Carolina, Aiken. We did cover that. We were the first to get that story out there. So there are 7 players, but of the 6 that are drafted, you think there are 4 that would make this list, Drew?
No. I'm just giving you the Rockies' top 4 prospects total. So Barbie doll. Yankees Barbie doll. We'll have to tell the story. You'll have to tell the story behind that at some point. So yeah, I've only got one of the Rockies' recent draft picks from this draft making their top 5 prospects, and it is Zach Veen, as well it would be. But I do have him slotting in just behind Brendan Rodgers, who does still technically qualify as a prospect. And so if you've got to include him, and you'll see this as a theme throughout my list, much of it is built on trust, and there is just more trust you can have in a guy who's performed at the professional level. While I may see a higher ceiling potentially on Veen as of right now, Rodgers has to be my number one, and Veen very comfortably is in at number 2.
Right. And so to go back maybe a half a step, Zach Veen, of course, was the 9th overall pick. If we've been tuning into our draft coverage leading up to it, he was a guy we did not think was going to be on the board. We also didn't think Max Meyer was going to be on the board. We were hoping he'd be slipping. He'd be almost the Jerry Jeudy of the draft, but a different Jerry Jeudy emerged, and Zach Veen slipped to the 9th spot. After that, you had Drew Romo, who's taking the collective bargaining the compensation round A. That was pick number 35. Chris McMahon, right-handed pitcher. He was taken in the 2nd round, 46 overall. Left-handed pitcher Sam Weatherly out of Clemson University, 3rd round, 81st overall. Local boy, Douglas County High School. Right-handed pitcher Case Williams was drafted out of high school in the 4th round, pick number 110. And shortstop out of the University of Michigan, Jacob Blomgren, 5th round, pick number 140. And as we mentioned, Luke Lysenring out of the University of South Carolina, Aiken. That is who the Rockies have assembled so far from the 2020 MLB draft.
And I have got 3 of those players in their top 15 on my personal list now, as you see there. So that would mean that Jacob Wallace will no longer be able to be in the top 15. In fact, a number of those people, and you can even see the 3 right there with Carl Kaufman, Taran Vavra, and Jacob Wallace all fit. Well, the first 2 fit more what I was talking about earlier with body of work. How much can I trust you as a professional? Just haven't seen as much yet. Vavra is just a little bit younger. Kaufman hasn't even performed at all as a pro yet. And Wallace is a relief pitcher who I think is very, very interesting, but they're always going to have a limited, more limited ceiling. I'm always going to be more excited about a starting pitcher and, potentially a Gold Glove catcher than I am, to give it away, who the other 2 are.
So you started with Zach Veen, and you said he would be number 2 on your list. He would slot between Brendan Rodgers and Ryan Rollison. And I would agree with that. However, I would not be shocked if on a lot of the updated prospect rankings, if we see Zach Veen ahead of Brendan Rodgers. There is a chance that some of these, scouts and pundit prognosticators are really going to fall in love with Veen's projectability. As good as Brendan Rodgers has been in the minors, and as good as I think the Rockies think he's going to be, I don't know that he has the potential to have a Cody Bellinger-like impact on the team, on the league, whereas Zach Veen does. He's much further away from that.
Agreed.
But I think until he shows that he's clearly not Cody Bellinger and maybe more like Lorenzo Cain or someone else, a lower tier outfielder who's maybe the 2nd best outfielder, patrolling in a lineup, you have him towards the top. So again, it would not shock me to see him at the top of that list.
Totally agree. And we'll maybe continue with this. We'll see where our guy is at, but we got to bring him in now because he's here with us, and we can't delay any further. So we can keep looking at those top prospects as we go through. But there's a lot going on in the world of baseball that we want to talk about with our guy who talks baseball all the time on their podcast, Talking Baseball. If you happen to have the Yankees as your AL team, you can check them out at Talking Yanks. Of course, Jomboy Media on the Twitter sphere and all the fantastic things they're doing out there. Welcome to the show, Talking Jake. What's happening,
guys? How we doing?
Mr. Storielli, how are you?
If you guys have to bring Philip Deal out of the bullpen again, I understand. I like his mix. Man, how are you guys? What's going on?
We're hanging in there.
I'm good. I don't know if you can see by the memorabilia behind me, but I am back in New Jersey right now.
Yes.
So I'm on the road. I'm at the Yankee Stadium, studios, as opposed to the Coors Field one we've got in our home. But doing okay. We're hanging in there.
Love seeing a good road game. Yeah, man, it's nuts, man. How about the past 24 hours, 48 hours in baseball history?
Yeah.
However the book ends up getting written. But I'm here to deep dive into Zach Veen. I mean, are we seeing him as a Brad Hop type, or what are we picturing?
They've already sold me on Cody Bellinger, Larry Walker. I can't walk it down to Brad Hop now. Like these are other people, not me, making these comparisons. So I just get to adopt them and be excited about them.
Take him and run, man. Take him and run. I don't know. I know I talked to you guys briefly when the Rockies pick was coming up, and hey, he's kind of got a baseball name. The swing looks smooth. I mean, yeah, that'll translate in a couple years, of course, if baseball still exists.
Right.
Yeah.
You're right. His name is kind of tailor-made for baseball, and that's short and sweet. You could either go Zach Zilla or Veen Kong. Those are the nicknames I got going circulating right now. Zach Zilla, Veen Kong.
Veen Kong is pretty good. I'm in on that.
Yeah. So as we were discussing before you got in here, he immediately becomes basically a toss-up with Brendan Rodgers at worst for the top prospect in the Rockies system, and at that lowest he's in second already.
Man, and I wish I wish before we get into it that we were here talking about Brendan Rodgers breaking out, or we were talking about Marquez is pushing for the Cy Young, or any litany of things that would be baseball, and it sucks that we're not. So I appreciate you guys taking to the battlefield as regularly as we do, and trying to talk some baseball. And your guys' draft stuff, I know you guys were giving out the credit, but holy smokes, that was that was it. That was TV show.
Yeah, man. Our producers and directors, Ali and Rudo, man, those guys are amazing, and Patrick and I can talk for a long time, so that's pretty good.
You guys did it.
It's fun. It's like Jomboy does in the morning, where he's going and he's like researching stuff and he's learning on the fly. That was the weeks and month leading up to the draft, where we keep an eye on this as baseball fans. You kind of have your hands in all these different pots, and you figure out what's going on. Even before KBO and MPB came back, I was aware of what was going on over there. But doing this, it was like studying. It was learning on the fly and getting all these names down and learning about Division II and Division III schools. And it was fun. It takes you back to a time where you didn't know everything, and you had decided as a baseball fan, I want to learn everything, so I'm going to do it. And this was kind of one of the last areas of like, hey, you know what? A lot of baseball fans don't know a lot about the draft. Let's dig in deep. Let's learn about these guys, and let's provide the best content possible. So thank you for those compliments.
Hey, and it's so tough, and it's one of the I was going to say one of baseball's actual struggles, but baseball is creating their own struggles as they go. But I mean, it really is tough, right? Because I mean, Zach Veen, if he fast tracks it, I mean, 2-3 years if he's incredible, and it's so tough to stay on that pulse. I like to do it. I know I've mentioned to both you guys a couple times. I play my out of the park baseball game, and that lets me do it a little bit. But it really is tough, and I'm actually going to put the Yankees down. So for everyone listening, you could unmute me for a little bit. It's also tough in Yankees land, and this isn't being snooty, but I was going through the Yankees draft picks, and I think 2 of the last 14 years have been impact players, and it's Aaron Judge, who the MLB is now shoving down everyone's throats, and partially rightfully so. And then it goes back to Jabba Chamberlain. So it's tough. How do you tell that fan base to get locked into this kid when they don't have the body of evidence to back it up. So I don't know. There's some first world problems if anybody wants it.
Yeah. Aaron Judge was the last first round pick to actually make his debut with the Yankees because their recent run of good play, back to back 100 win seasons, they've had to go out and kind of deal a lot of those prospects. Coupled with the fact that their first pick, Austin Wells, is a catcher. We just took Anthony Siegler 2 years ago, kind of doing somewhat what the Giants did, but with much less higher, potential catchers, taking catchers in 2 out of 3 years. That leaves, begs certain questions. How did you like what they did later on in the second, third round, day 2 of the draft, where they only had 3 picks? Is that right?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. We talked to Austin Wells on Talking Yanks, so that was pretty cool. Mostly because I'll be honest, for Talking Baseball, we've been cranking out content and it's been good. I mean, between interviews and the news that's been coming out, we've been able to really put a great product out there, and I'm really proud of it. Me and Jomboy, I think we might have mentioned this on the draft. We've been a little bummed out because, I mean, with Yankees news, we've been running dry a little bit. So it's it was cool that we had him on. And I'll tell you what, Austin Wells might be listed as a catcher for the next little bit, but I don't think my guy's a catcher.
That was my question.
His official position is listed as hitter. And he was everything you want in your first round pick. He was professional, yet he was a confident 20-year-old kid who he said, his approach at the plate is I hit bombs. So, I mean, what more do you want from him? I think they got arms in there, and I don't know, man. I feel like we went from this 5-day news cycle or whatever we're going to call it, from Rob Manfred standing up there saying we will unequivocally play baseball this year, which was kind of reported a week before that, but Rob, got up there and said it. And then it turns out the player union has been waiting for that the whole time, baby, because tell us when and where. What's the Rocky watch? Has everyone tweeted it? Are we still waiting for Nolan? Who's in, who's out?
I haven't seen Nolan. Hampson, Freeland,
David
Dahl. Yeah, I have.
Where?
And Nolan,
it's
I
perfect.
think, talks
They're on
to
the same page.
Oh, yeah. Nolan, I got to give a shout out to our guy Patrick Saunders over at the Denver Post. I'm straight up tell you, I've not read the story, but I saw the headline, and the headline was Nolan Arenado hopes that the fans are paying attention. I feel like I can intuit exactly what that means, and sadly, like 90% of the replies to that article from the Denver Post were people saying, I'm just frustrated with both sides. I'm throwing up my hands. They're all a bunch of children. And that's exactly what Nolan was saying. He hopes people aren't doing. He hopes that you're paying attention to the details, because on a surface level, it does look like a both sides thing. But when you start diving into this, it doesn't.
There's a definite lean, and I think I can give my not so quick timeline of where I've been and where I think a lot of people have been. There was the in good faith times, which let's be honest, if there's a time when the players, you can throw them under the bus. I mean, their first counteroffer wasn't in good faith either, but it's because the owners wasn't. So 112 games was never going to happen, but because we still negotiate like the worst people in your fantasy football league, they came in as high as possible, hoping the players always want to land at half a season full prorated. I mean, that's hasn't been a secret, but they've had to negotiate because the owners have pushed it, and the owners kept pushing at the full prorated. They never got anywhere. Kudos to the union for staying strong on that, because they deserve to. They deserve to be paid for what they do, because a lot of those guys will only be able to do it for 1, 2, 3 seasons. So good on them. And I just think it's been so funny to see how this language and how everything was written in that March CBA has now come to light. We had that first initial fight over people in the stadium and if they were going to adjust for that. And I think in the original Passan article, it was like, yeah, we checked with 4 arbiters. 2 said it would hold up, 1 said it wouldn't, and the other had no idea. And it's like, okay, so if we're going to deep dive into that, we're screwed. We're absolutely screwed. So we did that for a little bit.
So that's what we did.
So of course we did.
And that's the whole point, is that, their legal language is fine in the court of law, but if we're going to court, that means the season's done. Like the owners, if the owners wanted to, manipulate this how they wanted to, they screwed up. Because once it goes to court, you've already lost, because now there's no season. So you might win in court, but okay, now what? You can't go back in time and say, see, we were right. There's no time machines.
And here's the kicker. I don't think they are going to. I mean, in good faith, which has been thrown out the window from the start of this by both sides, but mostly the owners. And now we're at this point where Rob Manfred went on TV and said there will be baseball this year. The players kind of executed it perfectly, because we all thought that Rob Manfred 48-game emergency button was kind of the end. Like that was it. And now it seems like they wanted Rob Manfred to say that, because there was that other line in there that says they will try to play the most games possible. And it's become very clear that the owners don't want to do that. And now they're literally saying that they still want to negotiate, but as long as the players won't file a grievance. If you're saying you don't want the players to file a grievance, that clearly means you think you did something wrong. Who says that?
Right.
So I'm, yesterday was a very dark and sad day for baseball when Rob Manfred and that quote comes out. But I'm still optimistic, and it's a little bit my personality that I don't know if you want to call it darkest before the dawn or 1 step back, 2 steps forward. I think we're going to make progress. I don't know if it's that 48-game button season, or I'm not sure what it looks like. I still think we're going to get some form of baseball this year. It's just going to be interesting to what degree. Are the owners going to turn their back on Manfred at all? Are the owners going to cave in at all? Or are we just going to make this as ugly, drag out, knockout as possible? And I think you guys being so close to it know that that's probably what's going to happen.
Oh, I need a Breck brew. I need a beer, and I need it now, Patrick. I've got some right over in the fridge over there, and I'm going to be grabbing a Mile High Copper.
There it is.
As soon as I'm done with this thing.
Do we have a weed sponsor right now? I need them.
Mile High Green Cross is one of our sponsors. I don't know where they're at on our thing right now, but so grab some Mile High Green Cross and some. There it is. You get 20% off when you sign up for their loyalty program. Breck Brew. The cool thing there is if you go down to the farmhouse, you can get $5 off both your beer and your meal if you use the code DNVR. Is that one a 20? Let me double check. That one's just DNVR. $5 off. You call 303-803-1380 from noon to 8 p.m. They'll take care of you. They'll get it all ready. You can go pick it up. The food is delicious. The beer is extraordinarily delicious and will help you get through these difficult times as we try to navigate all of this stuff here. And one place where you're probably going to be able to take in a Breck brew before. I don't know if you got it out there out on the East Coast, if there's anywhere to get Breck brew. Yeah, you'll have to find one and
I'm on it now.
Us. Yeah. You'll have to let us know. And I want to see if we can pull up, by the way, the video of you singing. Let me see. we gotta try to make this happen. We gotta try to. But one place you're probably going to be able to take in a Breck brew long before a baseball game is out at a Colorado Raptors rugby game. They're probably going to have their stuff together because, as we have seen, baseball has been uniquely inept when it comes to returning. So you can check out a bunch of information on the Colorado Raptors. If you want to be a total expert on them once they return, you can check out our podcast here on the DNVR network. Follow Colton Strickler. He's breaking down the game of rugby 101 for you, teach you all the rules, get you to know the players here on the team, and you can buy some super cool merch. They have awesome looking designs and colors and all that stuff. So get yourself set up with some DNVR Raptors gear because Well, we may all have to become rugby fans here if we don't have any Major League Baseball for the next 2 years. And even if there is, still taking a rugby game, it's a whole lot of fun. You rugby guy, Jake? Have you done the rugby thing?
Man, you guys have seen my body type. I was often the guy around the college campus that the rugby guys wanted to use as another hitting target, but I always turned it down. Hey, I respect it, even kind of the bro lifestyle that college rugby sometimes pushes on. But hey, all respect to the rugby guys. I remember there was a time in Dallas I was playing pathetic pickup basketball with one of my buddies, and these guys came over and were like, "Hey, you boys want to play some rugby?" And we said sorry, like we've never played, and thought that would be a get out of jail free card. And they were like, "Oh, you should play with us." And we're like, "How dumb do you think we are? You think we're like 26 years old and I'm going to play my first rugby game? Like I'm already sore shooting hoops." So I all respect to the rugby world, but I'm not really in there yet.
That's not a game you can just jump into a pickup game. I jumped into a pickup game of cricket. It was being played on the tennis court next to where I live. And I said, I'm going over. I'm going to introduce myself to these guys, and we're going to play. And on a tennis court, we played this weighted tennis ball, and you couldn't hit line drives. If you hit the fence, like you would almost hope to do, that was an out. And played cricket, and it was dope. It was great. And I haven't seen those guys since. It was like a field of dreams, but for cricket.
But for cricket. All right, I'm going to see if I can get this video to play, unless, Patrick, you want to. Oh, did you get it?
Oh, boy.
Got it.
Oh, nicely done.
Very.
Oh, that's that right there. That is the state of baseball, ladies and gentlemen. That's where we are. That's where we have arrived at.
Instead of watching beautiful left side of the infield play in Colorado, we're watching my sunburned nose and my 8th grade chorus levels let it rip. And yeah, man, it was kind of a tough day. We've had a small group coming to the office starting last week. So we can do some content and stuff here. And we're 2 blocks away from Yankee Stadium. And so at about 4 p.m. Eastern or 5 p.m. Eastern, it breaks yesterday that Rob Manfred says he doesn't believe there will be a season. And it's just this, you just shrug and you say, what can we do? Yes, we've turned it into a business, but also in a way we've committed the past 2-3 years of our lives to the game of baseball and trying to grow it. And yeah, you guys know the feeling. It's just these kind of kicks to the nuts that are like, are you kidding me? So I was picking up the train. I think the 4 or the 6 right by the stadium. That's our work exit. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna leave it all out there, and you know what, the fans like it. So,
hey, as someone who used to sing on a stage for small amounts of money, right. I will say, nailed it. Some nice vibrato, a couple of good little up and down movements.
Heart
touched me here. Touched me.
Miles.
Did you go to Catholic school? That's a choir voice, I think.
I did not. I was a public school gal. I think I let it rip 6th, 7th, 8th grade. Yeah. I playing an instrument didn't work out. If I could ham it up and sing for a little bit, I'll sign up for that. And maybe some of our viewers might be familiar with that voice. You have heard me sing at Armida's and Ogden Street Tavern on a couple Friday, Saturday nights. Usually, I tried not to be the too drunk guy. I ended up slipping into you mix in a couple too many of those Brecs and a little bit of the medicine, and then you go up on stage, and it's not good. It's not good.
I did a Flight of the Conchords song at karaoke under very similar circumstances.
Yeah.
Not so long ago. And
which Flight of the Conchords song?
I believe it was The Most Beautiful Girl in the Room.
Ooh.
That I did. Looking around the room, I can tell that you are the most beautiful girl in the room.
Hey, Britt.
That's
Hey, Britt. Well, Jake, you got a couple options.
getting emotional myself.
I think you could be like the Weird Al Yankovic of baseball parody songs. That's an obvious avenue.
It's a route.
And the second one is if you guys can get your money together over at Jomboy Media, you might be able to buy a team, maybe even the Mets. But on second thought,
they're not very profitable, though.
On second thought, they're not very profitable.
It's a bad business investment.
You know what? You may have to go the weird Jake. The Weird Al Jankovic baseball parody songs, because owning a baseball team is not very profitable. So scratch that suggestion.
Yeah, the second option. I mean, it'd be fun and all, owning a baseball team and all the negative stuff, but it's you're pissing money away. Yeah, that's the song stuff has caught on a little bit. It's a touchy line because I don't want people to take it too seriously. I don't want to have the conversation, are you into singing? Because I'm not. But if people can have fun with it, I will do that. And there's been some whispers around here. If baseball doesn't happen, isn't there a baseball stadium on an Airbnb or something? Didn't that make the news cycle the other day? And I maybe just post something on the Twitterverse and say, hey, if you are in Florida, let's get it together today and make some content. But I hope it doesn't get there, and I really hope that and maybe I'm just being too blindly optimistic. I still think they're going to do baseball in some form, because if they're not, it's just an unreal failure.
On the part of everyone. Everyone loses. Everyone has failed. Some people have failed more than others, and I'll say it and hopefully not spoil too much of what I'm writing right now, but the man at the top has failed more than anybody. And this is the kind of thing that 100% tarnishes the legacy of a commissioner. And I'll leave my further thoughts on that for an article I've already written 1,000 words on. But we can get back into it. I do want to.
Let me say this. You know what's going to make you upset, Drew, is
here we go.
Upset about
is, according to my math, a 100% chance that Rob Manfred gets into the Baseball Hall of Fame. And think about when I'm saying this. Every commissioner has been enshrined in the Hall of Fame, including Bud Selig. And you go, wait a minute, the steroid scandal totally ruined the home run record twice, or two different home run records, right? The single season, the all-time with Bonds surpassing Hank Aaron. Yeah. And yet he's good.
That time the All-Star game ended in a tie. Remember that shit.
So there are a couple. So, I mean, that, and maybe that's so blasphemous of I'm not even going to acknowledge that he will end up in the Hall of Fame. I'm saying that right now in the midst of this.
Right. Yeah. And
it's crazy, but it's true.
It is.
And I think it's, I don't know. We've tried on Talking Baseball to get to a level of neutral as possible. I mean, Trevor Plouffe used to play the game. He's been in player union meetings. His perspective is going to be from the players, and that's fine. And it should be. We've tried to come in as neutral as possible. And the only line of defense we could come up for Uncle Bob was that, hey, do you think that he wanted to be the person that went out and said 100% will be playing baseball and then follow that up 5 days later and say, we probably won't? No. I mean, right then, it's you're the puppet for the owners. You're the one that has to go out there and do that. And again, should that be a direct reflection of Rob Manfred? Not necessarily, but there's a lot. I mean, they've screwed this whole thing up 10 dozen ways. And then, I mean, man, you dive into some of the deep parts of it and just the way that they haven't advertised baseball for baseball fans. And X amount of years and all the little stuff. Patrick, it's an interesting thing that, yes, the analytics you just cranked out is that Rob Manfred will make the Hall of Fame. He's trying to break the chain.
He's doing his best.
And I wonder if it gets so ugly enough. This is the Jake theory that I stumbled into today, is that let's say the owners are in a corner. Like they can't use coronavirus as an excuse because the other leagues are figuring it out and going to be playing. So the players can just point at them and say, hey, if they figured it out, why couldn't we figure it out? MLS has a tournament coming out. I think lacrosse does as well. NBA's got the schedule. So if they can't use the coronavirus,
the WNBA is going to be rocking and rolling. I'm getting in on the Phoenix Mercury. I think that's
okay. We're Mercury. Okay.
Belmont Stakes Saturday.
Yeah.
I can't. Belmont State. I mean, there's sports leagues and people figuring it out that baseball is not going to be able to hide behind that. So if the owners have to come in, and whether it's 60, 57, whatever number they think won't make me completely sad, but still will, whatever number they come back with, they're still going to have to pin this on someone. And I think it's Rob Manfred. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if the owners pivot on this and are like, hey, this guy he screwed everything up. He's supposed to be a labor negotiator. This is what his specialty is. And look where we are. It's the laughing stock of sports.
Yeah. I do want to hold your feet to the fire on a thing here in just a second. But
can we do Jeter and Walker finally?
Okay, we can do that too.
No.
Let's see if we got what we've got time for. Last thing I want to say on this, because we got a comment from Will, who says, he mentioned it earlier on Twitter today, and you're right, the whole MLB situation comes down to the March agreement for the players to receive 100% prorated salaries. If that included fans would be allowed to attend or not. That's what Jake was talking about at the beginning, the legal terminology and what the arbiters had decided and whether or not that could end up in court. And here's what I'll say about this and why the owners lose this argument, because there are two things that are possible there. One, that's really what they meant, and the agreement says that. And if that were to hold up in court, what that tells you is that the owners at the time purposefully ignored healthcare professionals and all of the experts who said there's zero chance you're going to be able to just come back and fill up your stadiums even as baseball. They knew that in March. So if they crafted an agreement that was contingent upon something they knew was not going to happen, it was not done in good faith. And then the other possibility is that they're just incorrect, that it was never contingent upon that, at which case the players have been correct every step along the way to say, we have an agreement. Can we just play baseball under the agreement we have in place? And then they made concessions when they, under that scenario, wouldn't have had to make any concessions whatsoever because they already had an agreement in place. So agreeing to fewer games or, any of these other things. So it's actually not a win for the owners if it comes out, well, it was contingent on having fans. It's like, well, then you totally screwed up in a different way by creating a ghost agreement to begin with.
Right. And that kind of becomes part of the scary part, because what if they did do that ghost agreement to begin with to get into labor stuff almost that's been looming over this upcoming CBA? And I think the two biggest things that need to kind of get to the fans is the billionaires, millionaires thing. People are already tired of that phrase. But I think the number that came out was 65% of MLB guys don't make over $1 million. So, again, we're still talking a lot of money. Yes, I mean, more money than a lot of people will make in a lifetime, in a decade, whatever. But you have to understand who they're going up against. The company that has doubled, tripled in value. A lot of these baseball teams have gone from $800 million to $1.5 billion in 10 years, things like that. And when they make money, that money doesn't get distributed to players. They keep that money. So if you're going to have 1 year where your company might not make, who even knows if they're losing money? The books ain't open. So even if they do have to lose money for 1 year, that is what it is. And I think the bigger thing, and I'll make a joke on myself about flexing to get it out of the way, but Jack Flaherty is our number one guest on the podcast. He's friends with Trevor Plouffe, so it's not like we've really done anything, but I think we've had him on 3-4 times, and he's an awesome dude. Real legit for being a freaking on a Hall of Fame career path. I mean, it's very young, but just think about that. But anyways, so when this started going down, he texted and he's like, "Hey, I want to come on the podcast." And we were all like, this was after the Blake Snell thing when he was talking on his Twitch, and we're like, Jack Flaherty's still a young guy. Do we want this? And we're like, "Hey, you know what? It was like a Wednesday night. We were like, hey, if you still want to talk tomorrow, sleep on whatever you're thinking. Let's talk tomorrow." Yeah. And he came in and everything was cool and collected and we had fun with him. But the biggest thing he drove home that if fans are listening, they need to know is that the players have made their concession. And it's the big players. It's the Max Scherzers that were supposed to make $35 million this year, that in a best case dream scenario that we snap our fingers and they start playing 75 games in a month. Max Scherzer went from making $35 million this year to $17 million or whatever it is. I'm not a math guy. But I think people need to think about what those numbers really mean. Like, yes, it's crazy money. Instead of thinking Max Scherzer is going to make $17 million this year, think that Max Scherzer lost $17 million this year. And it's mostly for the young guys that haven't gotten their payday yet. Think about when that sliding scale originally came out, which was basically to divide the players and not in good faith. there I go. But, all the guys making the minimum, the $500K under $1 million, those guys weren't really affected. It was all the guys who were making big money. And guess what? Those guys have earned every single penny. And we just struggled to put ourselves in those shoes. But the players made their sacrifice. And that's where when and where has become such a beautiful rally cry, because it's tied into, just the beauty of baseball, right? Like that's, if I was still living in Denver and one of you guys texted me and said, "Hey, we're playing a pickup baseball game at 3 p.m., my response would be when and where. And it's the beauty of it, and a little jab at the players. It's easy enough for them to all copy and paste and put out, which I think is maybe even more important.
I think Francisco Lindor messed up the hashtag because you can't have the "and" sign in there.
Frankie,
come on,
damn it, Frankie.
I know people are sick of the millionaire versus billionaire conversation, or rather, phrasing it like that, because I don't think that really does justice. Like to compare, the owners with the players, right? $1 billion versus $1 million. $1 billion is 100 times that, right? I am a math guy. It's 100 times that. So we think about minimum wage here in America as nationally, it's getting close to almost everywhere, like $15 an hour, right? And that's hard to take care of your family on $15 an hour. We are the billionaires. America isn't a billionaire type country, right? We're first world. Well, a third world country, if you want to use billionaires, millionaires, somebody would be making 15 cents an hour. That's the difference between 1 million and 1 billion, is $15 in a first world country like America and 15 cents. How are those two things considered the same?
Right.
They're not.
I don't know.
Exactly. They're just not even, to use a famous baseball phrase, in the same ballpark. Not even close. All right, so here we go. Before we can get into I'm hoping the Jeter Walker thing we can do will be amicable. We'll see if we butt heads during that. We'll spend more time on.
We'll try.
I want to give you 5 minutes here to take the floor and tell us what's going on with the Yankees and the 2017 video thing, and what did Rob Manfred know, and is this like the Red Sox, and what's going on there, because it's another one of these things that I think with so much going on, fans are inclined to just kind of loop it in with baseball is dirty right now and it's bad, and here's another gigantic scandal. So can you tell the folks what's going on there and what your sort of response is?
I'd say the Yankees did the exact same thing the Astros did. Send them to hell, and that's it. No, man, it's really unfortunate, man, because here's we've been a Yankees podcast and we've fessed up to it. In 2015 and 2016, the Yankees did what the Red Sox did and a lot of other teams around the league did, was they used the initial replay room to relay signs. And hey, when we're talking about Bobby Manfred as well, might as well loop him into this. The fact they never put it together that if you put a replay room next to the home dugout, that guys are going to use that to try to figure out signals and relays and all that stuff. So I think the very important part in the timeline here is the 2017 year you're mentioning, because the Yankees and the Red Sox were both yelled at for this. The Red Sox also had the Apple Watches mixed in and all that or whatever. So 2017 kicks in. The Yankees stopped doing it. I think they were even accused again, and they were found not to do it. The Red Sox, after that, had continued to do it. And most importantly, yes, they were relaying signs to the runner on second and everything like that. But they kind of spit in the commissioner's face, which back in the day used to mean something, used to mean a penalty. But that is what it is. Either way, nothing is near as egregious as what Houston did. And Boston and the Yankees did very similar things. Boston also kind of kicked the commissioner in the dick the year later and went another half step further. The Astros are in a whole nother league. Like it's not even a conversation. And I don't want to get into dirty journalism, but the way that article was presented this weekend was some serious clickbait. And hey, maybe I'm coming off as Yankee homer as they come, but there was really no new information revealed. And I'll say this, the one thing that I think any person could come back with is then why they want the letter to be opened? I want the letter to be opened. I don't think there's shit in there. Pardon my French. From everything we've heard of, and, we do have some sources that are closer to the situation, it's absolutely nothing. And I think it was thrown out there to kind of get them clicks up. So if you guys got more or want to bring it at me and tell me the Yankees are bad guys, I'm always open to that conversation.
No, I mean, I'll begin at first by saying I think your characterization of how and why the Red Sox and Yankees is way different than what the Astros did is totally fair, and I've tried to explain that to people as well. That the Astros did something that was organization-wide, that involved players, coaches, manager, GM, scouts at the minor league level, all getting involved in this thing, where both the Red Sox and Yankees are basically accused of having a video guy or two go an extra step and give players more information than those players probably should have had. But yeah, and to be honest with you, I do think the one thing that looks the worst here is that element of like they don't want it unsealed. I think it looks worse on the commissioner than it does the Yankees because there are two possibilities right there, that the Yankees cheating is worse than we thought, and that could come out if it's unsealed. Or the other thing is that the commissioner knew this was going on, knew what was going on with these other teams, knew what was going on in Houston, and did more or less nothing about it other than send teams a letter saying, hey, would you quit? And that was it. And he doesn't want that to get out, right? I mean, Patrick, do you see any other reasons why?
No, I mean, Jake, you started it off by saying, yeah, the Yankees are in a lot of ways just as guilty as the Red Sox and Astros, in some ways, right? But not entirely, because I'm trying to think of an analogy of like when you were in school and, last 5 minutes of class, teacher's like, all right, I'm done. They're over by their desk. And you use some, more adult language. You're goofing around with your friends, but the teacher can look the other way on it, right? You're dropping some F-bombs, whatever. They look the other way. Then in class the next day, someone blatantly out in the open used the F word, and the teacher goes, oh, that's enough, all right? I'm tired of this language. Shut it down. That's the Yankees. Then the Red Sox go, and they're like, all right, let me try it. And then you go, whoa, you're staying after. You're getting detention. It's very clearly, I am not happy with this language. And then the Astros stand up and are like, oh, yeah, check me out. You know full well you should not be using this language. And they're like, I'm still going to do whatever the hell I want. Okay, fine.
I'm saying
I'm
all
going
the
to make an
words.
example of you. You're getting written up. You're going down to the principal's office, and that's it. And I feel like that's the analogy where, yeah, the first guy is wrong too. The Yankees are wrong for doing what they did. But then it progressed. And it's like there are differences in the levels and what have you. And yes, on one hand, they are all the same. They are all cheaters in that way. But on the other hand, there are also these levels to it.
Now my analogy has been the party animals. There's some number of teams in baseball, we're not entirely sure, and they all got wasted and went out for a night of doing stuff, a lot of which is probably illegal. Some people were knocking over trash cans, some teams maybe peed on a cop car, you're like, oh, okay, that's no stuff. And then the Houston Astros were like, we're crazy, and they went over and knocked over a liquor store. And it's like, whoa, 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 whoa. And then some people came out and were like, hey, everyone was being crazy and breaking the rules. And we're like, yes, a lot of people walked up to and probably even crossed the line, but they didn't like graffiti the line, take a dump on it, run into the liquor store, you know what I mean? It's just
I like that.
It's just, it's been crazy. A couple kids smashed mailboxes, the Yankees and the Red Sox. The Red Sox got caught once, and then they got caught doing it again, and for some reason they really didn't get a punishment except Alex Cora. And then, the Astros burnt down a home and gave like a Fonzie. We're cool, right? Hey.
Like, no, guys, you're not.
This is what we're doing, right, guys? This is what we.
God, and isn't it crazy? Like it'd be pretty cool to have that be a story, but it's not either. I mean, how that used to be the conversation, how Houston was saved this year from booing because of the coronavirus. They're not even a thought.
I know. We got to get back to all that. Okay, so here are our options now, gentlemen, as yes. I'm going to need another Breck brew here in a minute for sure. We can either try to fit this Walker Jeter conversation into about 10 minutes, because I don't want us to go too long here, 10, 15 minutes. Or we can schedule another time. Maybe when were they supposed to go into the Hall of Fame? That's later this month, right? Isn't the date for that?
July.
Oh.
July 23rd through 26th.
I don't know if we want to wait that long. We should do something, though. We should all get together and do something on that day, since there's not going to be anything, and we'll just celebrate the careers of Walker and Jeter together.
We could invite some Hall of Famers, to come on the podcast, but I don't know if they know how to use the technology. I mean,
poor Ringlesby, dude.
Just Bob Gibson trying to figure out, like, where is this voice coming from? We're like, hey, Bob, we love you, man.
Not a Zoom, right?
He'll kick our ass if we talk.
Bob, we're just gonna show highlights of yours. Just be on the camera,
right? So yeah, I don't know. Do we maybe we set the table here?
A little appetizer.
Yeah,
a little appetizer. I like that.
All right. So then let me remind people, of course, about MSU Denver online. You get smarter. Boom. As you can tell, I have gotten incredibly smart from taking that. I know words like you get and smarter, but for very seriously, you can get an extraordinary education at MSU Denver Online, whether you're starting out your degree for the very first time as a new freshman, whether you're trying to finish up an old degree, whether or not you just want a few more tools in your toolkit, you want to change directions in life, whatever it may be. MSU Denver Online has safe, secure, and incredible education opportunities, and they're not just thrown together. I don't know if you guys have seen some of the videos of these professors who are not used to social distance teaching, dancing around, and history yoga has become a thing. No. You get a real online education. A lot of people not signing up for traditional schools right now because they have no idea whether or not they're going to get the benefits of them. You can beat that trend by getting in with MSU Denver Online right now. Check them out. They got hundreds of classes and programs. You're going to feel future-proof when you're done at MSU Denver Online. So you'll also be able to learn about the ins and outs of F-WAR and B-WAR and DRS, and how Derek Jeter is apparently the worst defensive player in the history of Major League Baseball.
Ever, baby.
I know that.
Proud of it. Damn proud of it.
Your response, sir.
Man, so here's and man, because you and I, we were talking about this, I think before I was leaving Denver, or maybe it was after, but we wanted to do the whole thing. And I had some serious stuff prepared, but hey, let me start off by saying this, and I'll show the kids listening, because people have forgotten in baseball that you can still be friendly and have a conversation. Larry Walker's an awesome ball player. And diving into the Coors Field effect, I think that was the biggest thing that people needed to get over, and he very much deserved to be in, and he's an awesome ball player. Awesome ball player. Derek Jeter, the shortstop, number 2. Derek Jeter. Before we get into some of that defensive fun, because that's no fun, right? Let's talk offense, people.
Oh, sure. Oh, look at that. Look what he did. All right. Okay. Bring us.
And.
All right. Okay.
And so let's talk offensive WAR, right? And, again, if you're not well versed in that, you probably are. You're listening to a baseball podcast. Derek Jeter is 3rd all-time in shortstop offensive WAR. The gentleman in front of him, Honus Wagner and Alex Rodriguez. So you're either going pre-segregation or, we haven't brought in black players. We haven't brought in anyone. And is Honus Wagner a bad guy? I think, was that ever, I feel like that was
no, I think he was
confirmed, or people came back on it. Either way.
He's a good dude.
So let's say it like this. Let's start phrasing things differently around Derek Jeter. He was the best offensive shortstop of the past 100 years. Is that fair? Can we say something like that?
The best offensive shortstops?
One of the things, so WAR is a counting statistic.
Sure.
And so it's naturally going to benefit anyone who has a longer career.
Let's remember that when it comes to the defense now.
Right. So, how we're defining best, I think you could say that over the course of his career, he likely provided more offensive value than any other shortstop. Not on a game-to-game basis, but certainly just in total over the course of his career. I think that's fair. In the last 100 years.
As a career, I mean, again, going off WAR, it's Honus Wagner, it's A-Rod, which we'll exclude A-Rod from this for juice, and he did slide over to 3rd, but whatever. I mean, A-Rod,
sure.
Bad guy, whatever. So it's Robin Yount after him. It's Cal Ripken Jr., which, again, I'm on the record. Cal Ripken Jr. is the only guy that I feel should be hot about things, because Cal Ripken Jr. had an incredible career. I'm not going to fight that. But he also slid over to 3rd base when Jeter did not. And I think, Jeter staying at shortstop. I started talking like an SNL character there, the guy in the hot tub. Jeter got hurt and he stayed at shortstop for too long. But guess what? And this ties into everything going on in the world. Baseball's entertainment. And I wanted to see Derek Jeter play shortstop. I didn't care. I didn't want to see Derek Jeter play left field.
Was that selfish? That's the question. Is that selfish? Because Ripken, while he moved over to 3rd base, he could have stayed at shortstop like Jeter did. But he also saw an opportunity, because at the time, Orioles were able to bring in a fantastic shortstop by the name of Mike Bordick, for those out there who follow the game incredibly closely. Yeah, Mike Bordick was a fantastic defensive shortstop. So, hey, I'll move over to 3rd base, and now we can have 2 Gold Glovers over there, and his bat was still good enough to be a corner infielder in that sense. And yes, I know the conversation was Jeter still could have been very valuable defensively, because the discussion wasn't even necessarily that he would go to left field. I think when it really started, the conversations started heating up in his early 30s to mid 30s, was center field. So he still could have been an incredibly valuable player to his club, but ultimately decided to stay at shortstop.
And so let's agree the offense is there. I
Yes.
know there is an argument against the MVP. He never got one, but I will tell you, I think it was 19 what year was it? Maybe it was 98 or maybe it was 99. He had the highest position player war in the American League, and he did not win the MVP. So, and he was on the first place Yankees. So it wasn't like a losing team thing. Derek Jeter could have easily stumbled into one or two MVPs, but hey, I kind of don't even care. It's, he's a fantastic offensive shortstop, arguably the best of the past 100 years of baseball, and I think that should be appreciated to some degree. So let's do the defense.
You're right on 98. He had 7.5 WAR, second position player behind Alex Rodriguez and Clemens when he was with Toronto as at 8.1. So you're right, he was there. He was third overall in B WAR in the American League in 98. Ended up finishing third in those MVP race.
And then I think
it's no Walker in 97 or Helton in 2000, but it's close.
In 99, Derek Jeter finished sixth in the AL MVP voting. He had a 8 WAR that year, only behind Pedro Martinez, which, hey, if a pitcher gets the MVP award, that's not a bad year to do it. But still, I think that should be out there if we're reanalyzing awards. And I think even at the beginning of this Corona thing, I think the MLB Network did one, and I think Petriello put it out there. So either way, Derek Jeter is a special shortstop, and it just goes, I think the part that's missing, and if we're going to, I'll finish off Jeter for defense. Yes, the defensive numbers aren't great, and at the end got worse. I will say this, our defensive stats, perfect? No, we know that. I know Drew is very, the times we have talked about this, defensive numbers are what they are. And when you start doing total WAR and you see what the defensive stuff does to Jeter, I mean, it kind of sucks because he had a reliable set of hands. I don't know how all of the range stuff measured out. I like to play the height card sometime with Jeter when you compare him to these other shortstops like the Vizquels and the Ozzie Smiths of the time. It's going to look different. Yet Cal Ripken Jr. graded out pretty well defensively. So I say I don't have great ground to stand on that. All I know is the people that were adults during that time period, because I was a kid, say that, yes, Jeter struggled going to his left. It's well documented. Who knows how that could have changed today in today's modern game where we have analytics on this thing? Is Jeter positioned differently? Anyone you talk at around baseball says that Jeter was very talented around pop-ups and things like that, and he had the sure hands and blah, 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 the range. I get it. Either way, the Yankees ended up got some rings. It worked out. And yes, the team was great around him. We all know. But the guy that I don't have the perfect argument against is Barry Larkin. I think offensively they're very different peoples. Barry does have the MVP. I don't think we should hurt someone for playing baseball a long time because we know it's hard to play baseball for a long time. I think
right. It is one of the skills of baseball is being able to play 162 games a year and then do that more than once and then do it, 18, 19 times?
So, and the only thing that I would say, bringing it back to Larry for you guys, obviously a very special ball player. I just think the position thing gets overlooked too quickly. We tend to treat shortstops, and maybe it's a nowadays thing, but yet at the same time, when Derek Jeter came up, it was him, A-Rod, Nomar. You don't see Nomar in any discussions. A-Rod was getting a little extra help. And, you guys are lucky enough to watch Trevor Story when they play baseball out there. Francisco Lindor, we referenced him earlier. Shortstop is coming around that maybe in 10, 20 years, we will talk about Derek Jeter and his stats differently. But as of now, man, he was the guy over the last 100 years. And I just think that's different than Larry Walker because, yes, very good, but I think there's other corner outfielders that you can put pretty easily into this conversation with Larry Walker, where Jeter, it's Ripken, Barry Larkin, kind of, and that's where some of the New York stuff comes into play. But at the same time, we hold Derek Jeter's playoff numbers against him when he played great. Isn't that the whole point? Like, if Derek Jeter had a 200 batting average in the playoffs, do you think that would be in my mentions every goddamn day? I think it would be. So I don't know. I think, and most importantly, the 100% stuff, A, Jeter didn't get it. But B, good job, that one voter. We need to get rid of that stigma. I mean, Derek Jeter should have been 100%. Cal Ripken should have been 100%. I mean, what are we really doing with these guys saying they're not Hall of Famers? So I know I almost took up all of the 10 minutes, so I'll let you guys take 10 as well.
No, yeah, I think.
Good point.
Oh, wait.
One thing I do want to say, you said they're calling the craft.
We got frozen Patrick, half frozen Patrick. You're gonna have to repeat all this. We're gonna have to get him back in though. Let's see if he falls out. See if he knows. See how long it takes him. Get back in. I'm sure it was. I'm sure it was. I'm sure it was going great too. He's gonna be able to bring it back here in a second. While looks like it's still figuring out. Let me just hop in and say, yeah. Hey, he's starting to move.
Okay. We have signs of life.
Good stuff. The age we live in, right?
Bob Gibson.
So I think that that it's the assertion that he's an all-time great that should have been 100%. Now I agree with your claim about the we got to get rid of the stigma on the 100% thing, and there should be players that are in at 100%. I don't think that Derek Jeter was that level of baseball player, and as great a stat as OR can be for certain things, it's not the be all end all of a guy's offensive profile for me, and I do want to take a look at some of the pop, some of the on base stuff. I'm not the biggest fan of WRC plus and OPS plus, but I'm going to look at those things too because they help us keep some things in perspective and cross apply. And I think when you take a look at all of those things and you do factor in the deep, that's the other thing is like your shortstop argument I totally agree with, but it also cuts both ways if you're not a premier defender at a premier defensive position. And so while I agree with you that like shortstops don't get enough credit, the numbers game that catch up to Walker, where according to Jay Jaff's Jaws, what is he, the 11th best right fielder of all time? Well, how many outfielders have there been in the history of Major League Baseball, and how many shortstops? A lot more outfielders to short. So the percentage, I'd really be very curious to see if Derek Jeter truly is a top 5 shortstop of all time. I'm not sure, but let's say he's comfortably top 10 for sure. He maybe there in the 6, 7, 8 range. I'm not sure. And if Walker's at 11th right fielder, I think considering the number of outfielders, that's actually more impressive for Walker. I think a lot of it is mystique, honestly, that Jeter was always treated like a superstar in the game. A lot of it comes from the postseason. A lot of it comes from being a Yankee. It does. And Walker, despite the fact that he was putting up insane numbers and was an elite player on both offense and defense and on the bases in every element of the game. There's no argument here where with Jeter you're like, well, maybe if you squint, he was an okay defender. Like, no, Larry Walker was an elite contact hitter, an elite power hitter, an elite defender. He had an elite arm. And he maybe wasn't an elite runner, but he was an elite base runner. He wasn't, his speed was probably just above average. And he spent his whole career of people saying, yeah, but. And that's why he doesn't feel like the otherworldly superstar that Derek Jeter has. It looks like we've got Patrick Lyons back. Hop in there, buddy.
Yeah, Larry Walker, 10th all-time on Jay Jaffe's Jaws. Jeter's at 13th. But as far as the outfield debate goes, in the Jaws system, it inserts an outfielder at every position. So I would say that levels out. You're essentially going to have the same amount of shortstops as you are, qualified right fielders. Yeah, maybe more players have played right field than shortstop, but we're cutting out the fifth outfielders. Like that's kind of a moot point. But
Sure.
for the most part, those guys are pretty level. The thing that Jake said that really stuck out was, you mentioned about Jeter's value of kind of what he did and being so unique, with maybe Ripken and Larkin kind of being in his class in that era, whereas Larry Walker has many more peers in his class, so that makes Jeter more unique and thus more valuable. Also, and there's no way for us to evaluate this, there's no statistic, who do we think made their teammates better? Now, we know what Larry Walker was able to do as a teammate. He was a great teammate, very beloved. But I tend to believe Derek Jeter got a lot more out of his teammates than Larry Walker did. Derek Jeter, say what you will about him being on center stage, you could use that for him or against him, right? Oh, he's a Yankee,
Sure.
so immediately he's better. Okay, he's a Yankee, so immediately his job's tougher. Go ask Sonny Gray. Or go ask Carl Pavano, guys like that who couldn't get the job done in New York because it was the Yankees. He was able to get that job done, and he was a captain amongst very few captains in that history. Number one being Lou Gehrig, right? And you go through the history of time, and he was a captain. So in that way, I tend to think, it's a fun conversation. And we'll have to continue doing it, but that's something that there's no metric for. Jeter, I think, got a lot more out of his teams, and you're right, Jake. This idea of like, well, look at what he did in the playoffs. It wasn't a small sample size. Sure, it's a bummer. You could say, yeah, hey, Larry Walker was pretty good in the playoffs. He wasn't Jeter, but if Walker had had more opportunities, maybe he would have been better. We don't know, but we do know that when it came to the playoffs, some of those Yankee players, Bernie Williams included, like, let's not forget about him. He's a guy when I think, what's a similar Yankee comp to Larry Walker? If you asked a lot of, baseball fans from around that time, who's better, I could see it being a 50-50 split. I know Bernie was more of a center fielder, but you could go 50% Bernie, 50% Larry, and that's not entirely fair. I think the edge should go to Larry Walker, but that just kind of belies the point of the importance of playing in those big games and producing. And Jeter kind of had the best of all those worlds and was able to produce in the playoffs, in the big spot, on the center stage, at this incredibly tough position, whether or not he should have been there or not. Otherwise, it's almost no contest in a lot of ways. But it could be, and that's the conversation we're having.
Yeah. I want to give Jake the last word on this here, so I'll interject a few more thoughts, and then I want to give you the floor. But on my current, and I do not have my vote yet, but on my current priority list for when I'm going to vote for the Hall of Fame, your impact on the team around you and your team success and winning in the postseason and winning championships is going to be at the very, very bottom of my priority list when it comes to baseball players. If I was voting in the NBA or the NFL, I would probably care more about those things because an individual can have much more of an impact. I don't disagree with the assessment that Larry Walker, while a great teammate, was also kind of a, hey, let's hang out and go gambling and drink, do the thing or whatever, and wasn't exactly, guys, we gotta focus, we gotta go out there and do the thing and win today. He wasn't that guy. 100%. That's just, I'll give it, it's worth some points. I'm not saying it's worth nothing, but I think it's probably the lowest thing on my priority list at the time. But I do grant all of those points to Team Jeter. The other thing I wanted to point out, and I can't find the stat in front of me. We've all seen it a couple times before. Our guy Manny Rondalla has kept it. But I thought it was important that because Jake qualified, and rightfully so in my opinion, the Alex Rodriguez stuff. So we're basically saying you've either got a guy who we know had some help, or a guy who lived 100-some years ago. Well, when you look at the outfielders who outperformed Larry Walker during his career, they're all guys who had some help. And so it's worth remembering that Larry Walker was arguably, again, can you prove Larry Walker didn't take stuff? He's been adamant he didn't. We know some other guys did. Some other guys, there's just some big question marks. But if we're going to include that in the conversation, which you did, and I think we should, Larry Walker is arguably the best outfielder of his generation who's totally clean.
And hey man, I've got no qualms with Larry, and I haven't done a deep dive on it, so I couldn't tell you if he's even, close to those guys. If anyone's got a picture of pills in the locker or not, I know I haven't heard anything, so I'm good with Larry. But I can use that for Jeter too. I mean, if there's
Exactly
if there's a guy that doesn't resemble steroids at all,
right.
It's Derek Jeter, and it's the whole time period he played. So I think that could be used as a booster for him as well. And I guess the only thing that I struggle with, and I'm sure me and some of the analytics people could get just into fist fights that would never be resolved. And let me bring it to my guy, Bernie Williams, who got mentioned before. Bernie, his defensive numbers didn't grade out too well either, and he's got a couple gold gloves, and he never had a throwing arm. He was always very smooth in the outfield, long strides, and again, the defensive analytics, and maybe I'm fully blind to it, and I will be because I'm a Yankees fan, and that's just how it works. Maybe the defensive graders went tougher on my Yankees, and I'll live with that another time until I can get some more nerds to research it better for me. But I think there's something to be said to the value of actually playing the position, whether it's special or not defensively. Would Bernie Williams's career numbers had looked a lot more impressive if he only played left field? Probably, right?
Yeah.
If you're doing some quick turkey math in your head there, that a center fielder playing left field for his whole career, I mean, what do Bernie Williams' defensive numbers then look like if it was kind of transitive? So I think there's something there. And then I just want to bring that back to shortstop, because for whatever reason, the best kid on every team growing up always plays that position. When you start playing Little League, and for whatever reason, for the past 100 of years, to put together a career at that position, we can only grab a few names. And I just think, for whatever reason, and I don't, not a left-handed, right-handed thing, but like Larry Walker couldn't have played shortstop. And I think there's a lot of people that you can point to and say that. And I know this spins into a whole conversation. Well, Derek Jeter couldn't play shortstop either. Well, he did. and the team won.
You're right. That's right.
So the Yankees draft pick, tying things together, I said he's a hitter and he's listed as a catcher, and I think he's played a little outfield. That kid, maybe he sticks at catcher, maybe he ends up at first, maybe right field, maybe DH. Shortstop ain't an option. And I just think for whatever, we put catchers in this category where the catcher stats need to matter more because they're behind the plate and grinding every day. And shortstops need to get there. And I think, like I said, with the Coors effect, people need to actually look at the other shortstops and be like, holy smokes. When you look from the last 100 years, it's him, it's Cal for the period that he was at shortstop. It's, Barry Larkin kind of. And I'm just saying this. If you gave every GM a shot to have Barry Larkin's career or Jeter's career, I think 30 out of 30 are going Jeter. And maybe that is plain biased, but and maybe it's the little stuff we hinted at the end there. But I don't know. I just think in the realm of people at the shortstop position and where Jeter really lands, that's what I got.
Yeah, to further that point, I've always been of this opinion. I famously wrote a series of articles where I claimed that on a game-to-game basis, when he was healthy, Troy Tulowitzki was better than Mike Trout, and I still believe that was true, and a lot of it is because at the time, Troy Tulowitzki was a top 5 offensive player in the league and a top 5 defensive player in the league at the toughest position. And the two players that I was able to compare him to at the time, who was the only other offensive shortstop who was in the conversation, a guy named Hanley Ramirez, who eventually had to move to first base and left field and all this other. He was the hitter. And who was the only guy who was even in the conversation in terms of defense? A guy named J.J. Hardy, who used to play fantastic defense for the Baltimore Orioles, but couldn't hit a lick, had a very short, relatively short career because of it, to your point. But what happened to my dude? His legs fell off his body, and he's retired and coaching for Texas now. So on a game-to-game basis, I was right. Your point is not to be undersold that staying at shortstop and producing, even if it's below average defense, but with consistent above average offense and just staying there for that long, should not be shaken out. Fans here know, like, Trevor Story's breaking these records, and some of it's because he's extraordinary, and some of it's because to hit 100 home runs as a shortstop is an incredibly rare thing to do. And if Story can stay healthy, he might work his way into this conversation, but we used to say that about Tulo, and he will not be.
Nomar. I mean, there's guys, and there's always a crop, and hey, this is how much I love baseball. If this current crop, Lindor, Tatis, if all of these guys picking it at shortstop and putting up crazy stats, if they want to blow Jeter out of the water, I'm fine with it. But for some reason, it just doesn't happen, and people kind of need to put on the way you look at a catcher. When you're impressed by what Joe Mauer does because he's doing it behind the dish, because there's a lot of guys around the league that can't hit a lick. Like, we don't view shortstop that way, but the history tells us we should.
Yeah.
Javi Baez and ya boy, Gleyber Torres. Can't forget about
Baby,
those guys
baby.
at shortstop.
It's quite the era, but we'll see. Again, we've said this at other times, and we'll see how many of them hold up. You know, even Manny Machado has had to change position a little bit back and forth. So, all right, Jake. Man, this was a bit of a marathon, but we never keep it short, can we? We just can't do it.
We can't, because we love baseball, damn it. So bring it back. I'd love to do some more Larry and Jeet stuff with you guys. Hopefully we could talk about real live baseball. How nuts would that be?
We'll all keep our fingers crossed. We'll have to get together sometime after.
As you guys always know, I need one take from you guys. I need like a Rockies 30-man roster take that, like, watch out for Garrett Hampson or Tapia. I need something that I can bring to people that I sound like a Rockies insider.
Oh, you want the good one?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll give you two names, a pitcher and a position player. I'll decide on my position player in a minute. But here's who you need to know. Antonio Senzatella.
Okay.
Starting pitcher.
Popping the mitt.
Yeah. 25 years old now. He got in shape. He stopped eating all the stuff the wife was feeding him, all the candy. He was sad about missing out on his candy, but the young man's in shape. He's driven. He's ready to go. Antonio Senzatella.
If you are in an NL-only fantasy league, Chris Owings is the guy for you.
Wow.
Like, multiple positions.
Wow.
He's back. I think he's back, not like that's, Derek Jeter's back, but he's back to, he's a guy that can steal 15 bases, is going to be starting 4 to 5 days a week because he can play just about everywhere, and you're going to kind of see, the best of his days, in Arizona. That those best days weren't as an all-star, but they were as a guy you go, shoot, this guy's, putting some things together, and I'm throwing him out there at second, short, third base. If Arenado needs the day off, he can play a little outfield. NL only fantasy, Chris Owings, very deep cut.
Yes.
That's some good stuff. All right, here's my position player. I got it for you now. Rockies fans, the podcast know this guy, but your national people will be more impressed by this one. Sam Hilliard. You got to go with Sam Hilliard.
Big boy, right?
He's 6'5", 232. I mean, he's built like a truck. Real pop. Kind of a big swing. He's going to strike out a lot, but not quite elite level speed, but the next down. He's probably the second or third fastest guy on the Rockies.
He stole 20 or more bases like the last 4 years in the minors. Like, again, the Rockies systems just say, hey, go and run.
They literally just don't care.
Figure it out, but it's like, why not? Yeah, go out there. Yeah, it looks like the Belmont Stakes when he's on the bases, except there's no jockey on his back.
Yeah, but he can move. The Rockies started playing him in center field a little bit. He's taken to it. Big cannon for an arm, so he's going to find his way into the lineup. And he just he got his September call-up at the end of last year and was just ridiculous. Was smoking hot. Hit like 7 home runs on the stretch. Was taking guys like Ryu and in the final game of the season down to their final out and down a run. he got Josh Hader to tie it up, and that ended up screwing up the Brewers, who had to fall into a one-game playing against the Washington Nationals that they did not win, and the Brewers should have won their division, but Hilliard got him. The rest of the Rockies played their role as well, as he reminded us on our draft day coverage. But literally, Hilliard strikes out there, ball game over, takes Hader deep instead. It's fantastic stuff. That's
and maybe the craziest thing about Sam Hilliard was that he was a 15th round draft pick.
Yeah.
Yes, and he thought he was gonna, when he was selected, he was gonna be a pitcher because that's what he did a little at Wichita State. And no, he said, no, we're gonna make you an outfielder. So spent a year at every single level, but his numbers were phenomenal. I don't think he was the MVP last year in the Pacific Coast League, but hit 30 homers, close to 100 RBIs, like most of the league did. But he did it with style and grace, unlike many. Damn.
Guy oozes tools, man. Check out.
I love that, and I haven't really had my sad thoughts about the draft only being 5 rounds yet. But when you hear something like that,
yeah.
What?
Oberg also taken in the 15th round. The Rockies' best reliever. Guy struck out the final 4 guys in the wild card game in Chicago to win the most important game of the last decade of Rockies baseball. He was taken in the 15th round of the draft.
Have you guys started dreaming Rockies short season championship yet?
Of course. What are you kidding me?
Okay, good.
Everyone's in it now.
The Rockies have never won the NL West, and it's very Rockies for them to have
there.
their first pennant in a 22.5 game season. I don't know how they're going to do the half game thing, but Manfred will find a way. 22.5 games. The Rockies will go 16-6.5 to win their first ever NL West pennant.
Yes.
That's a hot take. I haven't said that
I'm in on
publicly
that.
air yet. There
There
you
it
go,
is.
folks.
The Patrick Lyons guarantee. All right. Well, make sure you're checking out all their stuff at Talkin' Jake, at Jomboy. What are the other plugs? What are the sites?
Man, I won't even plug my stuff. I know we got the Rockies folks here. Trevor Plouffe does a show called Sequence on YouTube that they just go over some big at bats, and he had David Dahl on, and Dahl is a hitting junkie. Eyes lit up. So he's done some other guys. Yelly was the biggest pull. But yeah, I think McCutcheon. So if you're a hitting nerd, go check it out. Or if you're just a Rockies fan, I mean, go check out Dahl. He's funny. Just, you guys know, kind of a little shy Southern guy, but boy, does he love to talk hitting. Oh my God.
Yeah.
So go check that out and get a Breckenridge brew. Keep those ads coming, baby.
That's right. Or Mile High Green Cross, whatever's helping you through the day, right? All right. Jake, thanks so much for talking the time. Actually, that still works.
That's our new show, guys. There it is. If you
Talking
stuck
the
around
time.
for 90 minutes, talking the time, Jake, Drew, Patrick, all your favorites.
Talking the time. Make sure you're following everybody on the social media. You subscribe to the DNVR.com. You use whatever sale is going on this week and get yourself some cool merchandise. Make sure that you're following us for all the live chats on whether it's Facebook, Periscope, but especially the YouTube. Give us a like and a subscribe there. You can find all this stuff. You can come and join us. A lot of fun having people along for the live chats on YouTube. Otherwise, just remain absolutely awesome out there. We will remain absolutely Patrick Lyons, Talkin' Jake, and Drew Creasman in here. And until next time, we will see you at the ballpark.